Good morning and happy Tuesday. It's Miss Jen with Polk County Public Libraries back with another virtual alphabet story time. So this week we are doing the letter I. We do not have the worksheet packets this week. We do those every other week. So next week you can pick up your packets for the letters H and I. But we do have a cool take and make for kids. That video will be out tomorrow, so make sure to go ahead and pick that one up. So our books for the letter I, Miss Amelia will be reading I'm an Immigrant Too. So I'm starts with an I and immigrant starts with an I. And I will be reading Glory on Ice. Ice starts with an I, and this is a very silly vampire hockey story. And we will also be singing Old MacDonald because they say the letter I lots of times in that song when they say E-I-E-I-O. Glory on Ice by Maureen Fergus, illustrated by Mark Fearing. In some ways, Vlad had it all. He had a lovely home. He had more money than he knew what to do with. He hadn't aged a day in 800 years. But after centuries of doing the same old thing, Vlad was feeling a bit bored. It was time to find a new hobby. So Vlad strolled down to the local community center to check out what kinds of activities they offered. Dancing was fun, but Vlad wasn't sure he had the rhythm for it. Scrapbooking was creative, but Vlad wasn't sure he had the patience for it. Water aerobics was good exercise, but Vlad wasn't sure he had the legs for it. Just as Vlad was starting to worry that he was never going to find the perfect activity, he walked past the hockey registration desk. "This year we're going to pound those hounds," said one kid. "We're going to crush them," said another. "We're going to destroy them," shouted a third. Pounding, crushing, destroying. Vlad signed up on the spot. The following day, Vlad headed over to the sports store and told the saleswoman he wanted the best hockey equipment that treasured, plundered from ancient grave sites could buy. He was extremely impressed by the prompt service he received. For the next week, Vlad practiced putting on his equipment. He read hockey books and watched hockey games. He dreamed of playing for Team Transylvania in the gold medal match at the next Olympics. When the day of his first practice finally arrived, Vlad excitedly entered his assigned dressing room, only to be hit by a stench so revolting that he thought his new teammates must surely be overgrown ogres. Then he saw that they were just little human beings. Amazing, thought Vlad. After introducing himself to everyone, Vlad put on his equipment and sat patiently while one of the moms tightened his skates for him. Then, eager to hit the ice for the very first time, he followed the others out to the rink, bounded through the gate, and fell flat on his backside. Vlad was baffled. He had the best equipment. He'd watched people skate on TV. He dreamed of glory on ice. Plus, he was an immortal creature who possessed some pretty nifty powers. After careful consideration, Vlad concluded that his powers did not include the power to skate. If he wanted to learn how to play hockey, he was going to have to do it the hard way. And so, since Vlad had come to love hockey even more than he loved chasing after terrified mortals, he unsteadily stood up and got to work. In the weeks that followed, Vlad practiced skating forward and backward, turning and stopping, passing and shooting. Some days it seemed like he was really improving. Other days it was like he'd never played before in his life. Vlad often felt embarrassed by how much better everyone else was, but his teammates were so supportive and he loved the game so much that he never gave up. By the day of his team's first regular season game against the Hounds, Vlad could sometimes skate almost all the way across the rink without losing the puck, tripping, or running into someone. He was ready for anything. At least he thought he was ready for anything. Vlad's first instinct when he saw the hulking, heckling hounds was to fly over and destroy every last one of them. However, since he was pretty sure that kind of behavior would earn him a 3-game suspension, he just got out there and gave it everything he had. And if Vlad wasn't the fastest player, he was certainly the hardest working. And if he wasn't the strongest player, he was unquestionably the most courageous. And if he wasn't the most skilled player, he was definitely the most cunning. He spent a great deal of time in the penalty box. By the time the game was over, Vlad was more exhausted than he'd been in his entire immortal existence. And even though he and his team had done their best, they ended up losing 57-0. Don't worry, Vlad, said his teammates. With a little more practice, we'll beat them for sure. Vlad wasn't worried. Win or lose, he knew they were in it together. And for a hockey-playing vampire who'd spent centuries alone, that was the best feeling in the world. The end.
Old MacDonald had a farm, E-I-E-I-O. And on his farm he had a cow, E-I-E-I-O. With a moo-moo here and a moo-moo there, here a moo, there a moo, everywhere a moo-moo. Old MacDonald had a farm, E-I-E-I-O. Old MacDonald had a farm, E-I-E-I-O. And on the farm he had a pig, E-I-E-I-O. With an oink oink here and an oink oink there, here an oink, there an oink, everywhere an oink oink. Old MacDonald had a farm, E-I-E-I-O. Old MacDonald had a farm, E-I-E-I-O. And on the farm he had a duck, E-I-E-I-O. With a quack quack here and a quack quack there, here a quack, there a quack, everywhere a quack quack. Old MacDonald had a farm, E-I-E-I-O. Old MacDonald had a farm, E-I-E-I-O. And on the farm he had a horse, E-I-E-I-O. With a neigh neigh here and a neigh neigh there, here a neigh, there a neigh, everywhere a neigh neigh. Old MacDonald had a farm, E-I-E-I-O. Old MacDonald had a farm, E-I-E-I-O. And on the farm he had a sheep, E-I-E-I-O. With a ba-ba here and a ba-ba there, here a ba, there a ba, everywhere a ba-ba. Old MacDonald had a farm, E-I-E-I-O.
I'm an Immigrant Too by Mem Fox. I'm Australian. How about you? I'm Australian too. My mum was born in Sydney and my dad in Ballarat, and I was born in Melbourne. How Australian is that? My dad grew up in Darwin, my mum in Humpty Doo. Our mob's been here forever. Now we share the place with you. My family came from Ireland back in 1849. 1 million hungry people died, but now we're doing fine. My nonno came from Italy. His family followed after. At first, their lives were very hard, but now they're full of laughter. My auntie came from Athena with her brother and niece. Now we live in Adelaide because it's so like Greece. My granny came from England and was homesick every day. Then she fell in love with Perth, and now we're here to stay. Lebanon is beautiful. My family came from there. They fled a war, and now they sing Advance Australian Fair. speak just like an Aussie, which is really who I am. My family lives in Melbourne, but we hail from Vietnam. My parents came from China. They think Australia is great. Now we live in Canberra, and they call out, "G'day, mate." Somalia was once our home, but it was torn by strife. Now we're happy in Hobart, where we have a better life. My country was Afghanistan. We fled when I was small. Our boat capsized, but we were saved. Now we're Australians all. Syria was where I lived, but then we had to flee. Our family's now in Brisbane, and we're safe as can be. Sadly, I'm a refugee. I'm not Australian yet, but if your country lets me in, I'd love to be a vet. We open doors to strangers. Yes, everyone's a friend. Australia fair is ours to share, where broken hearts can mend. What journeys we have traveled from countries near and far. Together now, we live in peace beneath the southern star.